Good day, welcome. This is your Daily Med with Lady V. Again, we go to the great all of faith. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 32, and we will find none other than Samson. Samson in the book of Judges, chapters 13, 14, 15, and 16, we will find the story about him. Samson is known for his great strength and memorable exploits in battle. When we look at chapter 13, we see Samson's godly heritage. In chapter 14, we see Samson's feast and riddles. In chapter 15, we see Samson's reprisal. And in chapter 16, we see Samson being duped by Delilah. For the time in the book of Judges, many times, up to 7 times, we read again and again the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord. The cycle begins again this time. The Philistines enslaved Israel for 40 years. This was the longest oppression the nation had yet undergone. While the Israelites were being oppressed by the Philistines, an angel of the Lord appeared to the wife of Manoah and announced to this barren woman that she would become a mother. She would have this son. And so the son was born, and she named him Samson, a little son. It soon became obvious that the Spirit of the Lord was working powerfully in this life. Samson exhibits such contrast of strength and also weaknesses. Yes, when we think of Samson, we ordinarily think of his strengths, but let us not forget he has weaknesses, especially for those Philistine women. We see in his strength he killed a lion with his bare hands. Judges 14 and verse 6. He killed 30 Philistines single-handedly. Judges 14 and verse 19. He broke the cords with which the men of Judah had bound him. With the jawbone of a donkey, he slew a lot of people. Judges 15 verse 14 through 16. In escaping from a trap which the Philistines had laid for him, he walked away with the gates of Gaza. Judges 16 and verse 3. 3 times he escaped the treachery of Delilah. Once by breaking the 7 fresh bowstrings that bound him. Once by snapping the new ropes as if they were a piece of thread. And once by pulling out the pin that fastened the 7 locks of his hair to a loom. Judges 16, verse 6 through 14. Finally, he pulled down the pillars of the house in which the Philistines were being amused by him, killing more in his death than he did in his life. Judges 16, verse 23 through verse 30. Judges 16, 23 through verse 30. It says, "Now the rulers of the Philistine assembled to offer a great sacrifice to Dagon their god, to celebrate, saying, Our God has delivered Samson, our enemy, into our hands. When the people saw him, they praised their God, saying, Our God has delivered our enemy into our hands, the one who laid waste our land and multiplied our slain. While they were in high spirits, they shouted, Bring out Samson to entertain us. So they called Samson out of the prison, and he performed for them. When they stood him among the pillars, Samson said to the servant who held his hand, Put me where I can feel the pillars that support the temple, so that I may lean against them. Now the temple was crowded with men and women. All the rulers of the Philistines were there, and on the roof were about 3,000 men and women watching Samson perform. Then Samson prayed to the Lord, Sovereign Lord, remember me. Please, God, strengthen me just once more, and let me with one blow get revenge on the Philistines for my two eyes. Then Samson reached towards the two central pillars on which the temple stood, bracing himself against them, his right hand on the one and his left on the other. Samson said, Let me die with the Philistines. Then he pushed with all his might, and down came the temple on the rulers and all the people in it. Thus he killed many more when he died than while he lived. See, they caught Samson and they plucked his two eyes. He was blind. And now they're calling him out when all these great leaders are assembled together at their feast. He says, when the lords of the Philistine held a great sacrifice in celebration to their god Dagon, they brought Samson forth as an exhibit of what their God had done for them. They compelled him to entertain them. And so, with this feat, during the feast, Samson took hold, as the scripture tells us, of the two middle pillars that supported the temple, and prayed to the Lord for strength, and then pushed on the pillars and demolished the building. The Bible tells us all the people there were killed because Samson asked God for the strength. We see Samson so often consorted with the Philistines in his life. He could not resist these Philistine women. So he is now found with the Philistine in death. This is a sober lesson or a warning. If he had separated himself, it would have been different, or it would have earned him a nobler death. But loss of separation leads to loss of power and eventual ruin. So to yield our members to sin is to pursue, as we see, self destruction. But with all this, he still fulfill God's purpose for his life. Hebrews 11 and verse 32 tells us Samson was numbered with those that displayed great faith in God. And let us remember always that faith in God will be rewarded. So even in his death, even though he died with the Philistines, in his death, he killed more Philistines than when he was alive. And he was the man for that hour, and he also fulfilled his purpose. God bless you. Thank you again for watching. Please like, please subscribe, please share, and don't forget to visit my YouTube channel, Daily Med with Lady V.